Hi guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing another recent reads, and unfortunately a lot of these were just fine. Like, I enjoyed them, but I didn't really have any standouts besides one book that got a 4 stars, and I did end up DNFing yet another book. So we will go ahead and just get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Inheritance Games, which is the first book in a series, and this is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is a young adult mystery. And so we follow our main character, Avery, and she has learned that she has just inherited a ton of money from this guy by the name of Tobias Hawthorne, who recently passed and basically left her all of his money, but did not leave hardly anything for his own family. And we are following Avery as she is trying to figure out who Tobias Hawthorne even is and why they would leave her with virtually everything. And we follow her because in order for her to get her inheritance, she actually has to stay at the Hawthorne mansion. And the other people that are staying there are Tobias's 4 grandsons. And basically everybody is trying to figure out, why did Avery get this money? So I DNF this. I DNF'd it not quite halfway into it, maybe a third of the way in. I just was not vibing with any of the characters. The 4 grandsons got on my last nerve. They were just so pretentious, which I guess that's what they were supposed to be, but it just didn't work for me. I didn't necessarily care about the character of Avery. She didn't really like grab me in. I should have really paid attention to the synopsis of this story because I just didn't understand that Avery was going to be given everything up front. I thought she was going to be competing for the money along with the grandsons. So my expectations for this were not proper, and it should have been because it clearly says it on the dust jacket. When I picked this up, I had not read the synopsis again, so what I thought was going to happen did not happen. And there were like 2 games, I think, being played, but they weren't really interesting, and I just was not interested in this just was not what I thought it was, or I guess what I wanted this to be. So I unfortunately DNF'd it. So then the next one that we have is You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao. This is a young adult magical realism story. And so we follow our main character, Julie, and we learn at the beginning of the story that her boyfriend, Sam, has just died in a horrific accident. And so we follow Julie as she is trying to deal with her grief over Sam's death, along with some mutual classmates and family members, as they are all trying to come to terms with Sam dying. So in the beginning, right after his death, she decides that she's just going to randomly call his cell phone, and lo and behold, Sam picks up. And so we follow Julie as she's having these conversations with Sam over cell phone calls, and she is trying to slowly let him go. So I gave this one a 3 stars. This book was recommended to me by a subscriber. I had mentioned that I have never found a book that was going to make me cry. They suggested this one because it is very emotional. And yes, I did find this book to be like a sad, heart-wrenching story. It just did not tug on my heartstrings in the way that I thought it was going to. I appreciate the recommendation. I'm happy that I read it because this was a very popular book. I think it has recently made its rounds on Book Talk, but I am happy that I read it. I loved seeing Sam and Julie's relationship because throughout the story, we are getting these flashback scenes of how they got together, what happened during their relationship leading up to his death. And I really like that. I love seeing how their relationship had progressed over the years because they were together for like 3 years. And then I liked the talk around grief and how everyone struggles to deal with grief in their own way. So like I said, we primarily are following Julie, but we also see how his classmates were dealing with his death. He had a cousin that he was really close to, and how she was dealing with it, and how when people are dealing with grief, it can either bring you closer to people who you would never have expected it to bring you closer to, or it will fracture some of the relationships that you already had. So I really liked the conversations in this. It just was fine to me. I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything that really stood out to me. So then the next book that I have here is The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I hope I said that correctly. But this is a adult mystery. I have also seen it as a thriller. I'm not going to call it a thriller because I didn't find anything thrilling about this. So this one follows this married couple. It's Marissa and Matthew Bishop, and they go see this therapist. Her name is Avery, and she has really unconventional methods of helping people, couples get through their issues. And she also no longer has her license. So she is working when she's technically not supposed to. But Marissa and Matthew go and see Avery, and it is revealed very early on that one of them has been unfaithful to the other. And so we are following this couple as they are getting help from Avery for their marriage and trying to get through this revelation. But then we start to learn that some strange things is happening to the one that was unfaithful, and they possibly might be stalked. And then we also learn throughout this story why Avery no longer has her license and how she might be tied in with this couple. And it's just a really slow burn mystery. And I gave it a 3 stars. I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed looking into this, what we would think would be a perfect couple, and just watching how their marriage had deteriorated after the revelation of, you know, someone cheating. And I really liked the mystery of what was going on after that took place. I'm trying not to say a lot because I don't want to spoil anything, but I also really liked learning about Avery and her methods of trying to help her clients. And then I loved how everything came together in the end and how all of them were actually tied together. The thing that I just could not get behind is like there was this final twist in the book, and because the ending of it felt so rushed to me, I just wish certain parts of the ending were like a little longer, explained a little bit more, because then I think I would have believed this final twist. But because it wasn't, I just felt the ending didn't really live up to what I wanted it to be, but I still liked how everything came together, if that made sense. But I did really enjoy this book. I loved how slow paced it was and how you just really got to learn all of these characters. I'm not sure if this would work for everyone because of how slow it is, but I enjoyed it. So then the next 2 books that I want to talk about are arcs that I have read through NetGalley. The first one is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is a adult mystery thriller. It is the second book in the Rachel Crawl series, the first one being Night Swim that I really enjoyed. And so this one is released on August 8th. So we follow Rachel, and she is a podcaster. Her podcast is Guilty or Not Guilty. She looks into, it used to be she looks into old cases, and now she's looking into current cases. So at the very beginning of the story, she is looking into a case that is involving some campers that have gone missing. She is then contacted by these agents in Florida that want to ask them some questions about an inmate. And they explained to her that there was this girl by the name of Madison that came to visit this particular inmate, and now Madison is missing. And Madison is a really popular influencer. And so Rachel has been asked by these FBI agents to help them look into the case of this missing influencer. So I ended up rating this one a 3 stars. I rated the first book in the series, Night Swim, a 5 stars because I really enjoyed that one. But this one, just a 3 stars. I really liked the mystery around this missing influencer, and there was a lot of commentary on social media as a whole and influencer culture. It talked about how when, you know, people post on social media, it's all about the perception. It may seem people are one way, but they're actually another way. It also talked about how everything is numbers based, how many likes you have, how many followers you have, and that determines whether or not you are a good influencer or a popular influencer. It also kind of brought up how these influencers are really affected by like their stats and numbers and how that can affect their mood. It also talks about how much work it goes into being like a social media influencer and how you have to be doing this stuff basically like 24/7 and keeping up with your posts and your comments and all of that. So I really liked that about this book. I did like the mystery around this missing influencer and some other things that was going on we do get this chapter from a character that is involved in this mystery. I also like the podcast feel of this and how we also got chapters based around Rachel's podcast. The things that I did not like about this is I wasn't really invested in like this side romantic plot that we got throughout the story. I also thought some of the twists at the end were really just over the top, and some of this felt pretty predictable once you kind of started understanding what was going on, especially with that other perspective that we got in the story. So overall, I mean, I thought this was fine. I gave it a 3 stars, but to me, I just really enjoyed Night Swim better. So then the other arc that I read through NetGalley is Thornhedge by T. King Fisher. And this is a adult fantasy. This comes out on August 15th, but this is the second book that I have read by this author, the first one being Nettle and Bone, which I really enjoyed. But in Thornhedge, we are following this fairy by the name of Toadling. I'm going to assume that she chose that name Toadling because she was able to transform into a toad. But anyways, so we are following Toadling, and she is guarding this tower. And in the beginning, we don't really know why she is guarding the tower until she encounters this knight by the name of, I think it's pronounced Halem. That's how I said it in my head. But she encounters this knight, and he says that he is trying to get up in this tower because he needs to save a maiden. And so that's when we learn that there is someone up in that tower. We slowly learn why Toadling is taking guard over this tower like she is, and then we learn how it came to be that someone is actually up there. So we're just basically following Toadling and this knight as she is first in the beginning, she is trying to talk him out of going up there and saving this person, but then slowly she allows him to talk her into helping him go up there and see this maiden that is in this tower. So I gave this a 3 stars. It took me a while to get into the story. There was a lot of explanation and descriptions of what Toadling is. It reads very much like a fairy tale. This is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which I did like that aspect of it, but it just was like a lot of explanation, and it just took me a little bit to get into the story. But once I got into the story and we got some backstory on who was up there in that tower, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed like the fairy tale-esque feel of this, and I just really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed Toadling. She was just like this really sweet, wholesome fairy that just felt so bad for her actions during this story, and she was just trying to do the right thing. I enjoyed the character of the knight. He's a knight that's not a really good knight. He is just trying to do something heroic. That's why he is at this tower. And I just love the bond that him and Toadling shared. But like I said, it just took me a while to get into this one. I was not hooked on the story like I was when I read Nettle and Bone. And I just felt like the ending of this wrapped up way too quickly. It is a really short story, but I just wish it just could have been a few more pages longer so that the ending of it could have been fleshed out a little bit, because I had some questions. But overall, I did enjoy this one, and I might actually pick up a physical copy of this, but I did, like I said, give this one a 3 stars. So then the last book that I want to talk about is The Passengers by John Marr. So this is a adult mystery thriller, and in the beginning of this, we are over in the UK. They now have self-driving cars. We see several passengers, I believe it's 8 total, that get into their respective cars, and then they are locked inside with no way to get out. There's this message that plays that tells them that they will die in like 2.5 hours. And so the people in the cars, what's going on to them is broadcast to the entire world. It's playing on the news, it's playing on like all social media platforms. And the public actually participates in this because they are the ones that is deciding who dies and who lives. And so there's also another group of people that is a part of this jury, because at this time, a lot of people, there are some people who do not believe in the self-driving cars, and this jury decides anytime there's an accident, this jury decides whether or not it was the car's fault or if it was the person. And 9 times out of 10, they always say it is not the fault of the car. So we also have them that are participating in trying to see who lives and who dies. So I rated this one a 4 stars. I really liked how action packed this was. There was always something going on in this, and we were getting like twist after twist throughout this entire story, and it just never went in the direction that I thought it might go in. I love the conversation around AI and how we as a society are so dependent upon AI, even when we don't realize that AI is basically incorporated in everything that we do and use. I also liked getting to know about the passengers. Let me tell you, there's a bit of mess in this book, and we all know that I enjoy some mess. But we got a lot of backstories on these particular passengers and why they were chosen to be in this predicament that they're in. And I really liked the conversation around how I mentioned that the public is basically choosing who lives and who dies, but it's all based off of perception and what information they are given about these characters. So you can only go off of basically kind of like your bias towards these passengers. And so I like the conversation around that. I also really enjoyed the audiobook. I would say if you are going to pick up the passengers, I would definitely pick up the audio. It is a full cast because not only is it full cast, but this book also incorporates like mixed media, and that is incorporated into the audiobook with other like sound effects. So I really enjoyed that. It really helped my reading experience. The one thing that I just really did not care about in this book was like the final twist, because like I mentioned, we are getting like reveals throughout this whole entire thing, but the final twist I just could not get behind. I don't want to say it didn't make sense, because it did, but it was definitely confusing. And I feel like I had more questions by the end of this book, and I don't necessarily like it when I finish a book and I just have a ton of questions that I want answered and I know I'm not going to get them answered. But yeah, I just couldn't get on board with that final twist. But overall, I did like how everything came together. So I did say that I read The One earlier this year, but if you read this book, there is some references to The One. So I don't really necessarily know like if you have to read one before the other, but just know that when you go into this one, it does reference The One. So I really liked that tie-in as well. So like I said, overall, I really enjoyed this one and I gave this a 4 stars. So that is all that I have for you guys. I really wish that I had more books that weren't 3 stars, but at least I can say I enjoyed everything that I read for the most part. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.